Okay, good evening, everybody. Parshas Lech Lecha. I want to begin to show the importance of Parshas Lech Lecha. So I want to begin with Hayom Yom, which was a recent Hayom Yom on the first day of Cheshvan. And it's basically brought down from the Rebbe Rashab. And I'm going to try to say it in English. From the time Hashem said to Avram Avinu, Lech Lecha me'artzecha, go out of your land, which is this week's parsha, and it says, Vayisa Avram halach v'neseh negba, Avram Avinu kept traveling. Huschul Seder Birudim. The concept of refining the world began. And he says, based on the heavenly decree, a person goes on his journeys to the place where the sparks of Kedusha are waiting for him to redeem them. Tzaddikim, who are a great level, they see godliness, they see what it has to be, so they know where their place is that they need to elevate it, and they go straight to it. Other people, common people like us, Hashem causes, it says the cause of all causes and the effect of all effects, makes various different reasons that we end up in a certain place, because that's where our Veda of Avedas HaBerurim is to refine the world. That's a Yom Yom of Aleph Cheshvan. So we see that the Parsha of Lech Lecha, which begins, obviously, the lesson of the Jew, this Lech Lecha is a fundamental Parsha, not only as a Parsha of Chumash, but it actually tells us what the job of a Jew is. Okay, that's what it begins. The mission of why a neshama comes into the world is to elevate sparks of Kedusha in the place where they are. They move is because they finished their mission in one place, now they have work in another place to do. That is the ultimate purpose of a person's journey. So based on this, when you look at the name of the parsha, the name of the parsha is Vayem Hashem al Avram Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha means go for your own benefit, which means that the concept of going is obviously to move to a higher place, to go higher. Yet, a few psukim into the parsha, the Torah says, Vayera Hashem, Vayira v'oretz, there was a hunger in the land. Vayered Avram Mitzrayim Logoshem. Avram went down to Egypt. There he had a story, Sarah was kidnapped from him. He had a problem with Pari, what was going on. So the question is, what type, the pasuk begins with Lech Lecha, go from place to place, higher and higher. And then the Torah said, Vayered Avram Mitzrayim, there was a hunger and he went down. What type of going up is Avram Avinu's going down? And if the name of the parsha is Lech Lecha, which means to travel, and we're talking about a positive traveling, to go higher and higher, as Rashi explains, the simple meaning of the pasuk, I'll give you a great name, I'll make you wealthy, I'll bless you, everything fantastic. Yet, a good part of the parsha goes away with Avram Avinu being forced to go down to Egypt with all the problems that he had there. What type of aliyah is this? And there's a remarkable sikha of the Rebbe in the fifth chelak of the sikhas, which is a very complicated sikha, by the way. It's a fundamental sikha. But in a nutshell, one point that the Rebbe brings out from the sikha, which I think is very important for all of us to understand, and that is the descent of a Jew is not a descent. The descent of a Jew, the Yerida, the descent that a Jew goes down to Egypt, representing Egypt symbolizes evil, corruption, immorality. The Yerida of a Jew is part of the Lech Lecha. It's part of the ascent. There is no such thing by Avraham Avinu, and therefore for all of us who are his children, a concept of descent for the sake of descent. When the Jews went down to Egypt in Yaakov Avinu's time, in the same pasuk Hashem said, "Anechi ered imcha Mitzrayma," I am going to go down with you to Egypt, and I am going to bring you up from Egypt. And the Rebbe always quotes this in the halacha. The din is, and Hilchos Shabbos, in order to be biblically obligated for transgressing Shabbos, it has to be something constructive. Destructive acts are only rabbinically forbidden, not biblically forbidden. And one of the Lamites Malachis is the Malacha of Baina, construction. Another, right next to it, is the Malacha on Shabbos of Seiser, of demolishing. But the Gemara says, Seiser al Manas Livnes, when is somebody chayav? When is somebody biblically transgressing the Malacha of demolishing? Because demolishing seemingly is negative. It's destructive, it's not constructive. Is only when he's destroying with the intent of building. In the Gemara's expression is called Soiser. He's destroying al manas livnes in order to build. But the question is, it's still demolishing. The answer is, and this you see clearly from the halacha, but the Rebbe brings it out in this whole point of the Aved of a Jew, the fact that he's destroying it in order to build, the actual destruction is a part of the building. It's not demolishing, it's not destruction, it's building. And Rebbe explained this very simply. You come over to somebody, to a construction site, and they're knocking down a building, they're going to put up a big building. And you go over to the workers and say, what are you guys doing? They're going to say, we're putting up a skyscraper here. But the question, they're demolishing. Right now, they're knocking down the old building. What do you mean they're putting up? We're building a skyscraper. Right now, you're demolishing. But the demolishing is not for the sake of demolishing. The demolishing is for the sake of building. We spoke about this once before. There's a din in Torah. You're not allowed to destroy things. It's called Baltashka. You're not allowed to destroy things God made. So the Rebbe asks a question in the Tisha B'Av Sicha. So why did God destroy the Beis Hamikdash? Hashem is bound by his own Torah. If you're not allowed to destroy, why did Hashem destroy the Beis Hamikdash? And the Rebbe explains, like the story in the Gemara, that the Arab farmer had a cow that mooed, and the Arab said to the Jews, your temple was just destroyed. The cow mooed a minute later, and he said it was just rebuilt. In other words, Hashem didn't destroy the Beis Hamikdash for destruction. Hashem destroyed the Beis Hamikdash to put up the third Beis Hamikdash. It's taken a long time. But the purpose of destruction is not destruction. The Rebbe explains in the Sikha that the Vayedid Avram Mitzrayma, that not only, the Rebbe explains very deeply, and again, it's a very complicated Sikha, but just the point. The Rebbe explains not only is the descent in order to go up, the Rebbe explains the descent is part of the construction. The demolishing is part of the, it's not only in order to destroy. And that's why in Parshas Lech Lecha, which means going to heights, the Torah is using the expression Vayedid Avram Mitzrayim, and therefore what does it teach us? What's the lesson for us? We said before, Lech Lecha is the beginning of the Aved of the Jew. A Jew has to understand that in life, whenever they're having a descent, because Hashem is causing that descent to happen, the Jew needs to remember one point. If there is no such thing by a Jew as a descent, as an end by itself, descent is a means to an end to be able to build bigger, better, and stronger. And therefore, the concept of Vayered Avram Mitzrayim is mentioned in the parsha called Lech. Okay, that's one thing. Also, the beginning of the parsha, the pasuk opens up, Yem Hashem al Avram. Okay, every word in Torah is exact. Lech lecha, go for yourself. Me'artzecha, from your land. Mi'meilatecha, from your birthplace. Mi'beis avicha, from your father's house. To the land I will show you. It's very interesting. The Torah says, Hashem could have said, leave where you are now. Leave from here. Lech mishpo v'lech l'sham. Hashem starts saying details. From your land, from your birthplace, from your father's house. He didn't know where he was. And not only that, he doesn't say where to. He said, go to the land I will show you. So Rashi says, why didn't Hashem tell him where? Because Hashem wanted to give him more reward. He's going with blind faith. But if you think about it, Avraham Avinu couldn't even put his destination into the GPS, into Waze or Google Maps. He didn't know where he's going. And yet, when he goes to the place he's going, Hashem says one statement, to the land I will show you. When it talks about leaving, Hashem says, your land, your birthplace, your father's house. That's number one. Number two, Chassidus asks the question, the order is reverse. First you leave from your father's house, then you leave from your birthplace, then you leave from your country. That's the order. The person's leaving. First you leave your house, then you leave your birthplace, and then you leave the land. Over here, the Torah is telling him reverse order. Lech lecha mi'artzecha, leave your land, from your birthplace, from your father's house. It's a reverse order. And go el haaretz asher v'arecha. What and why didn't Hashem tell him where? So again, this is Avraham Avinu, Hashem telling the Jew, and this is the opening statement of Lech lecha, which means, like we said, the beginning of Avedis Habidur, and the Rebbe says in Ayem Yem. Hashem is telling what is the Aved of the Jew. What is the Aved of what is our Aved? Hashem says, and let's analyze this part word by word to understand what is our mission in life. It's not a history book. Torah is not telling us a story that happened. The Ramban says in the entire Chumash Bereshis, Maisa of the similar labanim. The story that happened with our forefathers is a sign, meaning the Rebbe explained the koyach, the strength and the ability that Hashem gives us to do what they did. So it's not stam. The Torah is telling us a story with Avraham Avinu. Hashem told him A, B, C, D, and then he went and he had problems with Sarah and power. No. Hashem is teaching us what is the mission of a Jew. The first thing Hashem says to Avram, to the Jew, Lech lecha, always be moving, never be stagnated, never be status quo. A Jew must constantly be going and going and going. From where? Mi'artzecha. There's different explanations in Chassidus. I'm going to say one. Mi'artzecha comes in the word rotzein. The Gemara says, Lama nikra shma eretz. Why was Eretz Yisrael called Eretz? Besides meaning land, the root of Eretz is Rotz. Sharotz is so lases with the same kind. It runs to do the will of Hashem. Artzecha refers to your wills. I have desires. I want to do something. Hashem says to the Jew, the first thing you need to do is there's no such thing as what you want. You have to do what needs to be done in life. I want to do a lot of things, but I can't do them. Why? Because that's not what my mission is. I'm not allowed to do them. It's either immoral or improper or I want to do a lot of things. I want to take everybody's money. I can't. That's because it's my will. Hashem says to do what you want to do. Artzecha, don't do it. From your birthplace, Chassidus explains, refers to your midas, to your emotions, love, fear, beauty, power, all the 7 attributes is called melatetecha, your birthplace, what you're accustomed to, what you were born with, the natural traits of love and fear that everybody was born with. And then the pasuk says, "Mi beis avicha." Avicha, father, we learned in Tanya. Av and aim is chokhmah and bina. Beis avicha, from your father's house, means from your intellect. The Torah is telling a Jew, it's not telling Avraham Avinu, pick yourself up and go. For that, you don't need all these places, 3 places. Hashem could say, leave here and go there. Hashem is telling the Jew, straight from the beginning, from the get-go, the avodah of a Jew is to constantly move. Where? From your wills, from your natures, and from your intellect. That's something that you need to leave. Where to? Where are you supposed to go out from? To where? Ela Aretz Asher Areka, to the will of Hashem that I will show you. And the Rebbe explains in the Sikha, that's why right after this, Hashem says, Vayera Hashem al Avram. Hashem appeared to Avram. Avram, so to speak, saw Hashem. Until now, it says Hashem spoke to him. Hashem spoke to him. He didn't see him. He heard him, so to speak. But when a person goes, you go out of your own wills, you go out of your own nature, you go out of your own intellect, and you go to the land, to the will that Hashem says, I will show you, our echo, I will show you. You merit, Vayedet Elav Hashem, Hashem appears to him. It's similar, it really belongs to next week's parsha, Vayeda, the famous question of the Rebbe Rashab crying, why did Hashem appear to Avram and not to me? And his father told him that when a Jew who is 99 years old, some Tzaddik said to him, a Jew who is 99 years old, understand he needs to do a Bris Mila. He is worthy that Hashem should appear to him. What does that mean? We're going to discuss later on in the Parshas about Bris Mila. We're going to discuss some interesting points about Bris Mila according to Chassidus. But the point over here is, Hashem is telling, what is the avodah of the Jew? Leave your limitations. Go out of your own Mitzrayim. Go out of your boundaries and limitations and go Ela Aretz Asher Areka, to the land which I will show you, meaning the place of godliness, the place of Kedusha. That's what a Jew needs to do. And then you merit that Hashem reveals himself to you. As we mentioned before, previous year, when Rabbi Hillel Paritcher, a great chassid of the Mittel Rebbe in Tzemach Tzedek, he was going out to the cities and the villages to teach chassidus. And he asked the Mittel Rebbe, what should I, or the Mittel Rebbe told him on his own. He said to him, when you talk to people about Yiddishkeit, the first thing you do is tell them stories of tzaddikim. And the question is, why? Stories? And the Mitzvah said to him, the whole book of Bereshis is stories. More than half the book of Shmos are stories. And then you have Matan Torah with the mitzvahs coming. That means 1.5 books out of 5, basically a quarter of Torah, begins with stories. And then it goes into the mitzvahs that a Jew needs to do. Why? Because stories strengthen the amunah, the belief in God. When you hear stories, miracles that Hashem does, stories of tzaddikim doing miracles and the various different greatnesses of people, the person learns how that instills emunah in them, and then they're able to do the mitzvahs properly. And that's the power of the stories of the others. The others don't teach us halachas. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, yeah, Avram Avinu had a Bris, Mila, and Yitzchak had this, and Yaakov had that. But basically, the others are telling us stories because they're teaching us the essence of Yiddishkeit. And therefore, little kids, it's so important that they should be told stories. Why? That instills emunah, faith in God, which is the basis of all mitzvahs. And we'll see that a little bit later. Another thing, it says, V'agado shmecha. Rashi says, V'agado shmecha, I'll make you famous, I'll make you rich. Or at Bris bin Absadim, Hashem said to Avram Avinu in the vision when he saw him, he said, Scharcha harbe ma'id. Your reward is a lot. Stop to think for a minute. It says in Pirkei Avos, a person should serve Hashem not for the sake of reward. Do we really think Avram Avinu was convinced and he was enticed to serve Hashem because of the reward? And if there was no reward, Avram Avinu wouldn't serve Hashem. It says in Pirkei Avos, he's supposed to serve Hashem not for reward. Why is Hashem promising Avram reward? As if Avram Avinu needs it. So again, Chassidus explains, Avram Avinu didn't need it. Avram Avinu, as the Medrash calls it, by the way, Rashi brings it down in Chumash also a few times, Ha'aves hein HaMerkava. The Aves with the chariot, the horse of God. The horse goes where the rider leads it. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the Aves, went where God led them. There was no person over here. Avram Avinu was completely bottled to Hashem. With love, Yitzchak with Yira, Yaakov Avinu with Rachmanis, Chesed, Gvura, Teferes. They were it's hard for us to understand it because we're not non-existent entities. We really feel ourselves a lot. But the bottom line is, the others were completely bottled to Hashem. Avram Avinu was given a mission. Avram Avinu was the first Chabadnik. The first Chabad house ever made in the world was by Avram Avinu in Be'er Sheva. He made the hotel. People came. He taught them about godliness. He made them bench. If they didn't want to, he charged them money. The first Chabad house in the world to bring people closer to God was in Be'er Sheva by the first Chabadnik, Avram Avinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the first Rebbe, by the way. Avram Avinu wasn't a Rebbe, he was Avinu. Avram Avinu was the first Chabadnik spreading Yiddishkeit, unlike Noach. Avram Avinu had a mission to convince people to listen, to believe in God. It helps when people see that somebody who believes in Hashem is successful. Because if Avram Avinu would be a pauper, he wouldn't have all these great things, Hashem giving them children and money and wealth and all good things that Rashi says in the Parsha. People wouldn't listen to him. He was the schnorrer. Look at him. He's not making it, so he really became a religious Jew. Hashem tells Avraham Avinu, go out in your mission. Vayikra Sham b'Shem Hashem Kel Elam. Avraham Avinu went out and showed not only that God is Kel Ha'elam, God of the world, but Kel Elam, God world, meaning God and world are synonymous. Avraham Avinu went out to the world to convince them to believe in God. As the Parsha says, the people that the Gemara says, Avraham converted men, started converted women, they were Makariv people to Yiddishkeit, to believe in one God, which was Yiddishkeit at that time. Hashem is telling Avraham Avinu, listen, you have a mission, I'm going to help you with the mission. Your reward is tremendously great. You're going to have such an abundance of physical greatness that will help people believe in you, and you'll be able to fulfill your mission. Similar to what we want, I don't want to get off topic too much, but similar, according to the Rambam, the ultimate reward is not Chiyas HaMesim, it's not in the Neshama in the body. That's what the Ramban in Kabbalah learns. The Rambam learns you can't have ultimate reward on a Neshama in the body. The ultimate reward is Gan Eden. Therefore, it seems, according to the Rambam, even after Tchias HaMesim, there'll be death and people will go to Gan Eden, seemingly. The world accepts the opinion of the Ramban, definitely according to Kabbalah Sidis. So the Rambam asks the question, who is tshuva? So if the Jew's purpose is not Gashmi, is not reward, the reward for Torah mitzvahs is Gan Eden. So why does Hashem say, in B'chukeisei telechu, if you go in my ways, I'll give you rain, I'll give you Gashmis, I'll give you abundance and health, wealth, and happiness. What does that have to do? That's not the reward for Torah mitzvahs. So according, the Rambam says clearly, it's not the reward of Torah mitzvahs. The reward of Torah mitzvahs is Gan Eden. What's the physical rewards Hashem is giving the Jew? The Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva, it's not as reward. What it is very simple, the Rambam says. Hashem sees the Jew is trying to keep Torah mitzvahs. Hashem will make his life easier. He'll give him money, he'll give him wealth, he'll give him health. He won't have to worry about everything. He'll be taken care of. That will make it easier for him to do Torah mitzvahs. But that's not the reward according to the Rambam of Torah mitzvahs. The reward is Gan Eden. In a similar vein here, Hashem says to Avraham Avinu, this, all that I'm telling you, your great physical, is not for you as reward. It's for you to be able to accomplish your mission much better. And that's what it is. A person shouldn't serve. If there'll be time later, I'm going to finish other points. There's a very interesting story in the Zohar with a famous Tana of the Mishnah called Rabbi Yosef ben Pazi. If there's time at the end, I'll mention that story. Okay, next. There's at the end of the parsha, Hashem says to Avraham Avinu to do a bris. I mean, a lot of things in the parsha we discussed last year's class, so I'd rather not discuss it again. But Avraham Avinu was told one of the fundamental mitzvahs of the Torah is to do a Bris Mila. It's, fundamental Yiddishkeit, the Bris Mila. So the Gemara brings down a story that this guy asked one of the sages of the Mishnah, if God hates the being oral, the foreskin, as the Psukim say, it's mu'usa, it's despicable by God, the foreskin. So he asked the sage of the Gemara, why doesn't God just make the person circumcised? It's very easy for Hashem to make every person circumcised. The Gemara in Aveda Zara, by the way, says, Nashim command mal yadamya, women are considered circumcised. In other words, they're not lacking the uniqueness of a bris milah, the bond with Hashem. They're considered circumcised in birth. why didn't Hashem make everybody circumcised? Is going to ask this Tana the question. And the Tana of the Mishnah answered in the following. Hashem made the world. He gave him an example. You bring beans home. You can't eat the beans. You have to cook them. You have to prepare them. And then you're able to eat them. Hashem didn't make finished bread. Hashem could have made bread grow. Hashem didn't make bread grow. Hashem made wheat. And then you have to grind it. And then you have to make it into flour. And then you have to knead it. And then you have to bake. Why? So he says, because we say if Friday night Kiddush should be end of beginning of Chumash Parshas Bereishis, right before Sheni, Asher bara Elokim la'ases, that God made, that God created la'ases to do. So the Medrash asks, what is that word la'ases doing there? Vayivarach Elokim Kivay Shabbos become Malachte, and day of Shabbos Hashem rested from all the work Asher bara Elokim la'ases, that God made to do. What does to do mean? And the Medrash says the word la'ases means l'saking, to fix, which means Hashem created an unfinished world. The Medrash says, Ruach tzveinis eina mesuveves. It's a very interesting Medrash. The Medrash says, when God created the world, the northern part of the world was left unfinished. It's not done. And the Medrash says, why? Because in case a guy will come and say, hey, big deal, God created the world, I can also create the world. So Hashem says to me, yeah, okay, fine. There's a fourth quarter of the world unfinished. Let's see if you can finish it. That's the simple meaning. That's what the Medrash says. Chassidus explains it much deeper. God created, Hashem created an unfinished world because he wants us to finish it. Our Aveda is to finish the world that God left imperfect. The Jews' mission in life, Lech to go to the land I showed you. Hashem is telling a Jew, I am creating an imperfect world. And therefore, you must perfect it. You need to do a Bris Mila. I'm explicitly making you imperfect in order that you do a Bris Mila and you perfect yourself. So when this guy asked the question, why didn't God make everybody circumcised? Hashem, of course he could have. But then the person would be perfect. Hashem says, I'm making you imperfect because I want you to become perfect. And that's the dwelling place that the Jew creates down here. Now there's another famous question Chazal asked. We know the Medrash says, Avram Avinu kiyem kol ha'Torah kula ad shelei nitna. Avram Avinu kept the whole Torah before it was given. If that's the case, a lot of the Mefarshim ask, why didn't Avram Avinu give himself a bris before God told him to do it? Avram Avinu kept all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Afilu erev tafshilin, even rabbinic mitzvahs he kept. So why in the world didn't Avram Avinu do a bris before he was commanded to do it? Why did he wait for Hashem to tell him to do it? So some Mefarshim answer, there's a lot of different interesting answers on this point. Some Mefarshim say the reason why Avram Avinu couldn't do the bris, because all the other mitzvahs you do once, you can do again. And once you do a bris, it's over. You can't do it again. So he was waiting, so to speak, for the time Hashem to do it, to tell him to do it, because then, he can't do it again. So, but to understand that, we have to understand what it says like this. There's a pasuk that it's a Pratik Shir Hashem, but the Medrash says on it, the mitzvahs the Aves did, Reiches Hayu, were Reach, smell, spiritual. Aval Anu Shemen Turak Shmecha. We, after Matan Torah, have the actual oil. You walk into a perfume store, you'll smell perfume. You walk into a smoke shop, you'll smell smoke. But that's only the smell of smoke, the smell of perfume. The mitzvahs Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov did, the Medrash says, Reiches Hayu. They were only spiritual. What does it mean they were only spiritual? They did not affect the physical world whatsoever. Meaning, the Zohar says in Pashas Vayetze, when Yaakov Avinu played with the colored sticks of Lavan's sheep, that whole famous story. It says in the Zohar, what's the Torah telling us about the colored sticks? Yaakov Avinu accomplished the same thing like we accomplish when we put on tefillin. The colored sticks, Yaakov Avinu accomplished the spiritual revelation of what we do with tefillin. But the sticks didn't become holy. The sticks never became holy. Tefillin become holy. Why? Because all the mitzvahs Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov did until Matan Torah did not have any impact on the physical world. It was only reiches, which means ruchnius, and also means it was only the smell. It wasn't the thing itself. It was only the offshoot of it. So all the mitzvahs the others did basically didn't accomplish anything in the world. Avraham Avinu wanted that one mitzvah should be like Matan Torah. It should be like the uniqueness of Matan Torah, that the physical world becomes holy. That mitzvah was the mitzvah of Bris Mila. And therefore, in Pashas Chayei, when Avram sent Eliezer to find a shidduch for Yitzchak, basically to get Rivka to come to marry Yitzchak, it says, Sim no yacha tachas yirechi. Avram Avinu says to Eliezer, hold on to my bris Mila and swear. What type of genius is that? So the Medrash says, today, when a Jew swears in court, it's on a Sefer Torah, it's on tefillin, it's on something holy. There was nothing holy in Avram Avinu's time to swear on. There was one thing Avram Avinu had that was holy, and that was his bris. Why was it holy? Because Hashem told him to do it. All the other mitzvahs they were not commanded to do. If they weren't commanded to do, Hashem the object didn't become holy. The object didn't become holy. Because Bris Mila, where he was commanded from Hashem to do it, the Bris became holy. Avram Avinu, the Rebbe explains, Avram Avinu wanted to do at least one mitzvah of bringing the essence in Hashem, which, by the way, gave Maisa of a similar Labanim, that gave the power for Matan Torah to happen. And therefore, Avram Avinu couldn't do the bris on himself, because then he can't do it again. And then he would lose out that uniqueness that the bris Mila wanted to accomplish, that Avram Avinu did the bris on his own. Okay, another thing, it says concerning bris Mila, the pasuk says, okay, sometimes it says, "Umaltem as arlas levatim." You should circumcise your hearts. Another pasuk, you should circumcise your heart. Another pasuk says, "Umol Hashem Elokecha." Hashem will circumcise you. And in fact, at the end of the parsha, it says, "Be'etzem hayom hazeh," in the middle of this day, Nimol Avram. Nimol in Hebrew means passive. It doesn't say he circumcised. Before it says he did it. Before it says he took everybody, and by Yamal as the Saralasim, he circumcised them. Here the pasuk says Nimol Avraham. Nimol Avram means he became circumcised. So the Alter Rebbe in Torah explains the concept of a bris Mila. It says is a covenant, a bris. Bris actually means a covenant. When somebody said, "Did you have a bris?" You're talking about bris Mila. Even though there's more bris mentioned by Torah than there is by bris Mila. But what does it mean, a bris? What's the concept of a bris? A bris is a bond between two people that even when logic dictates it shouldn't be, you do it anyway. That's the concept of the marriage vow, so to speak. What's the purpose of a marriage? You're friendly. Because by friend, if you get into a fight, you're not a friend. By marriage, the whole purpose of a marriage is that even when things are not going great, you still stay married and you work it out. The concept of a bris, as we'll soon see, is something infinitely greater than logic. It's a bond of essence to essence. In the bond between a Jew and Hashem, there's two ways of the bond. And by Bris Mila, it's both ways, and therefore it's the ultimate covenant. There's one way of doing it, that I make the covenant with Hashem. Another way is Hashem makes the covenant with me. The best way is we'll make a covenant with each other. There is a Mila, the bond that comes from Hashem from above. Umal Hashem Elokecha es levavcha. God will circumcise your heart. That is a circumcision that comes from above. God is connecting to us from his perspective. Then there's a level of bris, of a covenant that we do. That level is the bond from our perspective to Hashem. The ultimate goal is both ways. And therefore, even by Avraham Avinu, the pasuk says, "Vayomal Avraham." Avram circumcised himself at the end of the parsha. It says, "Vayomal Vayikach Avram." Everybody, Avram took all the whole family, and Vayomal es Besar Olasam. He circumcised them, and not only that, he circumcised himself. Okay, Avram Avinu did the bris. But then afterwards, the pasuk says, "Be'etzem hayom hazeh nimel Avraham," passive, meaning that was the covenant that came from above. That level is a much deeper level. It's a double covenant. It's a covenant of Momaila Lamata and Momata Lamaila. And that's the whole purpose of Bris Mila. Okay, let me continue with another aspect over here, and we'll make this explain. Hashem said to Avram Avinu, "You're going to have a kid, Yitzchak." Okay? Sorry, Ishtach, at the end of Parshas Lech. Hashem said to Avram, "Sorry, Ishtach, change your name. Uberachti v'gam nasati mimenu bein." I'm going to give Sarah a kid. Okay, you're going to have a kid from Sarah, which obviously became this. Vayemer Avram el Elokim. Avram Avinu said to Hashem, Lo Yishmael Yechal Lefanecha. Halavai, that what's wrong with Yishmael? I have a son Yishmael. And like Rashi says, Halavai, that I'm not worthy of having another child from son. So Hashem said to him, no. Next pasuk, Vayem Elokim, no. Aval Sari Ishtecha Yeledet Lechavei, and you should call his name Yitzchak. Why did Avram Avinu? Avram Avinu was a brilliant man. He was a holy man. Why did Avram Avinu want to be content with Yishmael? And Hashem said to him, my friend, no, you're not going to have Yishmael. You're going to have a Yitzchak. If there's anybody that understood how to raise children properly, how to educate children properly, trust me, it was Avram Avinu. Later on, Yishmael chose to become evil, and eventually Yishmael himself did tshuva, unlike Esav. But if there's anybody that knows how to raise a child, it was Avram Avinu. Hashem said, you're going to have children. Avram Avinu comes to Hashem and says, you know, Hashem, what's wrong with Yishmael? I'm raising him properly. He could be a good Jew. Hashem says, you need a Yitzchak. What was the fundamental difference between Yishmael and Yitzchak? Yishmael, as the pasuk says, was 13 years old at the time of his bris. Avram Avinu was 99. Yishmael was 13 years old when he had a bris. Yitzchak was circumcised at 8 days old. What's the difference between 13 and 8 days? 13 is bar mitzvah. It represents intellect, seichel. Yishmael's bond with Hashem was intellectual. In fact, Yishmael used to tease Yitzchak by telling him, you know, I'm greater than you. I did a bris when I was already 13 and I agreed to do it. You're a little baby, 8 days old. What did you know? Of course you couldn't say no. I could have said no and I agreed to do a bris. I'm greater than you. It's one of the things he used to tease Yitzchak with. Yishmael's bris, the covenant in connection to Hashem, was intellectual. 13. Avram Avinu comes to Hashem, and you have to understand, Kabbalah says the name of Avram is Av, Chochma, Ram, exalted. Avram Avinu, Kabbalah says, was a level of Chochma Stima, which is the level of Chochma of Kesed, even higher than the Chochma of Atzilus. Okay? Av, Chochma, Ram, super exalted. Avram Avinu said to Hashem, what's wrong with an intellectual bond? What's wrong with Yishmael? What's wrong with a bar mitzvah kid binding to Hashem? And therefore, it's not stam Avram Avinu didn't want Yitzchak. This is a discussion in the focus of a Jew. Avram Avinu says, Lo Yishmael Yechia Lefanecha. What's wrong with an intellectual bond? There's nothing wrong with it. Hashem says no. It's not acceptable. Lo Yishmael Yechia Lefanecha. I mean, Avram Avinu says, Hashem says no. Ki b'yitzchok yikari l'chazara. The bond between a Jew and God is an 8-day bond. What's the inyan of 8th day? Why didn't Hashem tell us to do a bris on the 5th day, 6th day, 7th day? In fact, not all kids were circumcised by Avram on the 8th day. If Avram Avinu bought a slave, a Goyish slave, a day old, he circumcised him on the day old. In the hospitals, they do circumcision. The kids are a day old or whatever, less. Hashem has to wait 8 days to do a bris. Why can't Hashem say the baby's born 2 days later, make a bris? Chazal tell us, in Sfarim it says, the reason why a bris is on the 8th day, because a kid needs a Shabbos as a preparation for the bris. A kid has to live through a Shabbos. The Kedusha Shabbos prepares himself for the bris, which is a beautiful concept. But let's take it a step further, Chassidus says. The 8th day represents, like we learned, Vayi b'yom hashmini, the level of the supernatural. Time and place is divisible by 7. You have 7 days of the week. Sunday is not the 8th day of the week. Sunday is the first day of the next week. There's 7 days is week. 8 represents supernatural. As we know, the Klei Yakir says the harp in the Beis Hamikdash had 7 strands. The harp of Mashiach is going to have 8 strands. The menorah in the Beis Hamikdash has 7 candles. The menorah of Chanukah, which represents Mashiach, is 8. What's the meaning of Bris Mila? Bris Mila is the bond between a Jew and Hashem in a supernatural way, above intellect. As we said at the beginning of the parsha, Lech Lecha me'artzcha me'ladcha me'beis avicha. Hashem says the concept of a Jew, the mission of a Jew, is to get out of your will, out of your nature, out of your intellect, and go to a place which is above it all. So therefore, Avraham Avinu says to Hashem, what's wrong with the bond of Seichel? Hashem says to Avraham, no. That's in next week's parsha. But the pasuk says Yitzchak is going to be the child of Avraham. The bond of a Jew is Lech Lecha, above Seichel, and that's why Yitzchak Avinu did the bris on the 8th day, and why we have an obligation to a bris on an 8th day. And if you do it earlier, no good. You have to do a toughest the bam. You have to let blood a little bit. Why? Because the bond of the Jew and Hashem is above all that. And that's why the bond has to be 2 ways. The Jew circumcising themselves and God circumcising us. That is the bond. Why it happened by Matan Torah? Hashem came down on Har Sinai and the Moshe Rabbeinu was told to go up. The bond between Hashem and the Jew is not one way. It's not a one-way friendship. It is, but as they say in Yiddish, there's an expression, geknippt und gebunden, tied and bound. It's from all ways the bond between the Jew and Hashem. There's a very interesting story. We have a few minutes left. In the Zohar, there's a story that Rab Abba, who's a person in the Zohar, a very prominent person in the Zohar, he announced that whoever wants to get rich should come and learn Torah. You want to be rich? Come and learn Torah. So this Ravik Chad, Ravik is like a guy. He said, I want to learn Torah that I should get rich. I want to learn Torah to become, you just announced. You just announced that if you learn Torah, you'll get rich. He said, okay, I want to. So Rabbi agreed. And Rabbi asked him, what's your name? So he said, Yaisi. That's my name, Yaisi. So Rabbi said, you should call him Yaisi, the wealthy, honorable person. When he started learning, before he started learning, Rabbi told the students, call this Yaisi, the wealthy, honorable guy. He started learning for a while, and he came to Rabbi and said, I didn't get rich yet. You promised me wealth, I didn't get it. So Rabbi was a little upset. He said, that means this guy never meant it really. He only meant for the money. He didn't come to learn Torah. He wanted the money. So he wanted to throw him out. Tell him get lost. A voice came out from heaven to him. He heard a voice that said, don't do it. This person is destined to become a great man. So the Baba kept him in the yeshiva. The Zohar says a little bit later, a wealthy man came to the Baba. And he said, I'm not able to learn Torah. I'm not just my brain. I can't learn Torah. I want to make somebody wealthy that he should learn Torah from me. Learn Torah in my schus. So the Baba said, okay, great. He called in this Yasi, this guy Yasi. He says, okay, here's your wealth. The guy gave him a golden becher, gold, pure gold, yin gold, okay? And he became very wealthy. After a while, Rabbi Yasi started learning Torah, and he saw that Torah is above money. He regretted the fact that he said, where's my wealth? So he said, so Rabbi Yasi came to the Baba. He said, take back the money, give it to the poor orphans and widows, and I'll learn Torah Lishma. And his name became, in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yasi ben Pazi. His father's name wasn't Pazi. Paz is gold. We say in davening Shabbos, and Echamadim mizav umi pazrav. Paz is in Hebrew gold. Why was he called Rabbi Yasi ben Pazi? Because he started learning for money. And he got this golden becher, this golden Kiddush cup. At the end, he realized that the learning is, and the Rebbe asks a whole bunch of questions, and it's a whole long sikha. The Rebbe is answering all the questions of this. But this was connected to the point that Hashem, when a person wants to learn Torah, like we mentioned before, Hashem will give you wealth, not as reward, but to enable you to continue learning and doing what you need to do. Okay, there's a lot more things in Parsha Lecha, the 4 kings, the 5 kings, a lot of issues, but we'll stop here. Mitzvah Shem, Wednesday night, the class will be at 8 o'clock, Haloch and Tanya. Everybody have a good week, and the rest of the week, a good evening, and only good news.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.